Here's a little something for you. We talked bookwork. Bookwork is a little different. We're talking not sculptures, anything like that. We're actual parts of books done by monks, done by nuns, monks in training, and usually referred to as illuminated manuscripts. This particular one is Otto the Third, so not Otto the First, Otto the Third, and him sitting on his throne and receiving the Gospels. So just to kind of look at this, the picture book, if we know the symbols of what's going on here, we can start to decipher what's happening. So up here, you have an eagle. The eagle, the ox, the lion, and the winged man all represent the four apostles, or the four main apostles, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So the ox is Luke, the eagle is John, Mark is the lion, and Matthew is the man. In Otto III's right hand, he's holding what's called a globus cruciger, which is a representation of the globe, the earth, with a cross above it, representing Christ. So you have heaven and earth type of thing. In his left hand, he is receiving the Gospels from Luther, who is the guy over here on the right-hand side with the flag. So has his hand out to receive the Gospels, the four Gospels. The scroll holds up the banner that represents the church. Once again, we call this is Luther. This little guy down here, I will admit I had to look it up. This is Tellus, Tellus. It is the personification, or he is the personification of Earth. So he kind of looks like he's made out of rock a little bit, and he's got a human face and human arms. Well, the throne of Otto III is resting upon the earth, as him saying that all I do is for the betterment of the earth. However much of the earth that they knew at the time, they knew their little quadrant of the earth, however far the Ottoman Empire went, which didn't go across all oceans or any oceans and that sort of thing. Oh, go back. My bad. The four guys down at the bottom, those are representations of different bishops and archbishops that were in the church, particularly from Germany and Poland, that where this particular book was written, at the monastery where this particular one was written. And then just for giggles, we talked about Magdeburg Cathedral and St. Maurice and those sorts of things. This is what the actual Magdeburg Cathedral looks like. And this is what the facade, the main entrance to Magdeburg Cathedral looks like. Okay, let's talk Romanesque. We talked Gothic, Romanesque, similar but different. Romanesque means in the Roman manner. So this term came around in the 19th century, so this wasn't something that came about during the actual time from 1100 to the 1500s. We're talking the 1800s. You have a lot of things going on here. You have a lot more trade. You have wars and that sort of thing, but it's kind of solidified under one larger ruler, Holy Roman Emperor, and that sort of thing. So you have a lot of pilgrimages to the different cathedrals, and you have a lot of trade that goes along those routes. You have relics and reliquaries, which we've talked already. This is the time of when you start seeing the cathedrals. Okay, so the cathedrals start to pop up around this time. It leads from Roman into Gothic and back and forth. This is also the time of the Crusades. The first one was in 1095, and it was specifically to retake Jerusalem as the Holy Land, away from the supporters of Islam. And the ideas and the ideals of the Romanesque period spread because of specifically the establishment of monasteries and universities. So these centers of knowledge where people would be taught. They'd be taught from the holy book, the Bible, but they would also be taught math and science to an extent, a little bit of science, but not a lot of science, because science sometimes goes against religion, and there was this fight between them. We still talk about those sorts of things today. So pilgrimages. What the heck's a pilgrimage? Pilgrimage is a going from one place to another to a, we won't say holy site. It doesn't have to be a holy site. It could be a sacred site. We'll go with that. It could be a sacred site. So of believers, of supporters going from where they're at to a sacred site. They could be long. You're not tall. You didn't have planes. Most people, they had boats, but it wasn't ocean liners, those sorts of things. We're talking boat, boat, not a great boat. So they could take a while. You may have to walk or go on horse or donkey. Along the way, different churches, small town churches and monasteries would provide things like food and lodging. Your first hotels and those sorts of quote-unquote hotels, doing the air quotes things here, would supply you with food and lodging. The roads that led to the big cathedrals were protected by the Pope's army, or was protected by the Emperor's army, who was a supporter of the Pope, and back and forth and that sort of thing. So they were guarded by the military, which were knights. The key thing was that different churches had different relics. And if you were a supporter of a certain saint, you went to go see, or if you had a specific ailment, if someone was dying in your family, you might go to the Church of St. Lazarus. So you could pray specifically to Lazarus, St. Lazarus, for possible resurrection or bringing back from the dead or close to death, especially if they were very sick in some way, shape, or form. So depending on what your ailment was, that would be where you would go. This is almost funny to me. We even have this sort of thing today. There was a guidebook, a travel guide in, we're talking the year 1000, 1100, somewhere around there, a guidebook that was written by Amory Picot, and it had the 4 main roads in France, that it gave you places, the good places to eat and shop, and a dictionary of local words and local customs and those sorts of things. And that, it just kind of kills me, think of somebody in that time period buying this little pocketbook and going around and talking to people, and you pull into Chartres and you ask them, well, where's the best place to eat? I think the main idea, I didn't live during that time period, none of us did, but I would think that the main idea was just simply be getting food, not looking for the best place to eat. So what do they see? Picture, if you will. You've been walking for, we'll round it off and we'll say a month. And you're going to a specific chapel, a specific cathedral. Cathedral being different than a chapel. Reliquaries are kept at cathedrals because they're like the district churches. They're not the little town churches. They're the big ones. Cathedral is where a bishop would be centered at. So priest, bishop, archbishop, all the way up to God. What do you see? You see off in the distance, you see this 2 giant spires. You get closer and you get closer and you get closer, and you come up to the west portal, the main entrance of the cathedrals. And the first thing you see are these 3 giant doors. 3 very specifically for Father, Son, Holy Ghost, the Trinity. And you see all these images, the jam figures on this little diagram we have here. You've got saints and apostles. You have the tympanum right above the door. If you walk through that door and you look up, the first thing you see on most cathedrals on the western side is the Last Judgment. It's the church telling you, as you enter these doors, everything that you have done, everything that God knows about you, literally everything, you will be judged. And you will be held accountable for it. That's the first thing you see as you walk through most west portals of Gothic era, Romanesque era cathedrals. If you look, you can see here's Christ in judgment right above the central column. If you look, central jamb, if you look straight up, you see Christ. He's in judgment. He has his hands out. He has his halo around him. And there's these little scenes around him. You want to see the really kind of cool but creepy, but wow, I probably need to shape up scene? You got the tympanum right there. Boink. Look a little closer. You can see Christ a little bit better. See different scenes of different things going on. If you look really close, which is this area right here, kind of in the, just to the left, Christ's left, down here. What's going on here? You have the weighing of souls. You have the devil on the right. He has all these little minions clinging to him. You have the serpent down here at the bottom with the forked tongue. And there's a scale here. Part of it's been broken off. There should be another arm that goes right here. And here's the pivot for the scale right here in the middle. And they're weighing the worthiness of the souls. And who gets who and who gets what. Christ has sent his angels over here to the left. We can tell by the halos. We can tell by the wings. And then we have the devil with the gruesome face and the lines carved into the face and the open mouth. And they're weighing the souls to see who gets to go where.